and international. Before I get into all of that, let me recognize, of course, our sponsors for today. We're talking about the Fencing Rasta. He's one of our sponsors. Touch Control is also another one of our sponsors. Sebastian Alliance, Audio Plus, Ron's Motors, the Cricket Club Restaurant, New Life Natural Company Limited, and of course, Fidelity Bank Bahamas Limited. They're the sponsors for the day, and of course, we always thank you for your support for the show. We also have some other interesting intros before I begin the show, and that relates to the work of the Fencing Rasta. This is a read that he shared with us, and we want to just share it with you. Looking for the perfect fence to secure your property and elevate your home's style? Look no further than Fencing Rasta, where we provide top quality fences built to last. Whether it's privacy, security, or curb appeal you're after, we offer a wide range of options. Visit us now on Facebook or Instagram at Fencing Rasta to view our work. Our one-man fencing expert ensures slow, reliable, and affordable installation every time. What's up? 820-3356. 820-3356 today for your Fencing Rasta, who protects what matters most, your life and your loved ones. So again, welcome and good day to our show, or welcome to the show. It's, of course, the afternoon, 4 o'clock, I'm sure, the breakdown, and we have hopefully an interesting and a compelling story for you, and of course, a compelling show for you. A lot has happened in the world recently. We know that the U.S. elections just took place, and I'm here tonight to share with you, this afternoon, to share with you some of the interesting takes which could be made from this particular general elections. Some are very happy. My daughter called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. She said, "Daddy, I swear I'm leaving the United States." She was sad. She was very, very sad. She literally told me I'm leaving. Now here's someone who is very concerned about the future of the United States. Other friends of mine and other persons that I've spoken to, they're very happy, very, very content. But what about the impact of this election? What impact will it have both domestically in U.S. Domestic affairs, and of course internationally? How will it impact the Bahamas? Will it impact the Bahamas? Well, we have a number of persons who will join us today to join in that conversation. Some compelling persons, some of whom you may know and others that you may not know. They include Dr. Gilbert Morris, Ambassador at Large for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, former parliamentarian Frederick K. McAlpine, Freddie, I didn't forget the K, veteran political activist S. Ali McIntosh, my good friend, and political science major at the College of St. Benedict's and St. John's University, Elan White. Together, we'll discuss the behind-the-scenes issues and insights as regards the last election. So there you go. That's our show today, and we're going to begin first by introducing some of our online guests. And I see 1, 2 already. They're here with us today, and I want to welcome them all. Let me begin with Elan. Elan, that's you. I'm now meeting you for the first time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the show, Elan. Say a bit about yourself.
Hi. Good afternoon.
You're connected to the CEO here. Am I correct?
Yeah. So that happens to be my mother. But thank you for inviting me to this afternoon. It has been some time since I've been behind the microphone or on the air, so this is good to be back. Like you said before in my introduction, I am a political science and communications major here at St. John's and St. Ben's. Most of my work, or I would say what I'm studying now, centers around elections and parties, and also foreign policy as well. So, yeah.
Well, Elan, tell us a bit about St. Benedict's, a well-known university. Many great
yes.
have attended. Some well-known ones.
So St. John's and St. Ben's is located in Collegeville, Minnesota. We are a liberal arts university, well known and well connected to the Bahamas. Bahamians have been coming here on campus for over 100 years now.
100 years, wow.
So some notable Bahamians, most recently the late Philip Delanis. He was
That's correct.
The alumni of the university, as well as a trustee on our board. Eugene DePuche, Etienne DePuche, Barry Griffin, who's a senator there now, Maxine Seymour, who's also a senator. So just some relatable people who has been to our school.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. First time meeting you, and I'm sure you'll do well. Bahamians excel wherever they go. It is because of Philip Galanis that I actually it was interesting to me that I realized that you were a student at St. Ben's. It was because of Phil. Phil was a good friend of mine, and I know at one point he did indicate to me that is the university that he attended. But thank you, and again, welcome. We also have on board, of course, we're not gonna forget the Right Reverend Frederick K. McAlpine, but let's turn to Ali McIntosh right now, my good friend and my sister. S. Ali McIntosh. Didn't know there was an S and an Ali McIntosh combination, but it's good to see you, Ali. How you doing?
It's good to see you too. I mean, it's wonderful just to be. I mean, we had to trace you down, Dr. White and I said I can't wait to see Fayne. So it's good to be on the show. Good evening, Bahamas. Good evening, the young man, Mr. White. Both of us, I guess. I'm coming from the United States. I'm in the United States now in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm on the ground feeling what has happened yesterday.
Excellent location. Now, Ilan, you are in mid-America. Is that Midwest, the United States?
Yes, I would be in the Midwest, Minnesota.
Okay, and of course, Ali is in the Eastern Coast. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, on the East Coast. Okay. Of course, we also have with us here tonight the Reverend Freddie McAlpine, my good friend, Freddie K. McAlpine. People always remember to say. We go back many years. Pastor McAlpine, welcome. He's not on yet. I see. Well, we anticipate his arrival shortly. And of course, also Dr. Gilbert Morris, the ambassador at large for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Let me begin then by saying that there's a lot to talk about. First, let me begin by asking Ilan, be so kind as to explain to us and to our listeners the Electoral College. How does that American system work?
Well, yeah. So the American system works based on the Electoral College, which is made up of representatives from each state when they will go to Congress in January, which will be after the election, and they would actually vote to confirm the president of the United States. Now, the number needed to win the presidency or to win the Electoral College is 270 votes. So once you pass that, you would then become the president of the United States.
It's an indirect form of democracy. Would you agree?
Yes, I would say so, because it doesn't work off of the popular vote. So no matter who wins the popular vote, that doesn't necessarily guarantee them the Electoral College. We've seen that in the past with Hillary Clinton, for example. She won the popular vote and still lost the election.
Okay. We're gonna dive a bit deeper into the weeds with that fairly soon, but I really wanted you to share with that as an opening salvo. Now, of course, my good sister Ali, I have to ask you the obvious question. We've now had two attempts at widening the political experience, which is the American, which is what the American democracy offers. Two women have run now for the highest office in the United States of America. Does it seem more likely that there will be a female prime minister in the Bahamas before a United States president who happens to be female? What's your take on that?
I'm looking at it. Obviously, America has a bigger and a larger different segment of people in the but in the Bahamas, we're a small country. We can almost group us all together in terms of what our thinking is regards to politics. It may be that the Bahamas may be able to achieve that quicker than America. As we looked at the results last night, of course, they were talking about urban areas, the city areas where the Democrats were much more popular than inner America, where in the country we can look at it and say America is mostly conservative. And so the thinking is obviously because there is a larger different kind of population, a different kind of the population or varied parts of the population. So I think the Bahamas may be able to do that before America based on what we saw happen last night.
I'll tell you, again, at 10 o'clock, I was fine. And then at about 11, I decided to just take a break. And by 1 o'clock, I was fast asleep. And my daughter was watching. So I relied upon her. She's in the middle of Tennessee. So from
I was up until about 3. So
about 3 o'clock, I see.
Until 3 o'clock, until it was declared, until Mr. Trump actually spoke. So, we get to see all of the details of what actually happened yesterday.
Okay, I think we have Pastor McAlpine with us. Am I correct? Excellent. Let's introduce Pastor McAlpine, of course, and let me welcome him. Freddie K. McAlpine, my good friend, how are you in Grand Bahama today?
might sort it out.
Okay. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Ready. How are you? How and how is Grandma?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm trying to get in.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I can hear you and see you. Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. I'm just trying to get my earbuds in so you could hear me clearly.
This technology nowadays is amazing.
It is. It's very much so.
It's incredible, really. These youngsters do not know what they have. They should not. In fact, Ilan, I'm gonna come back to you very shortly. You guys should not be taking any exams. No research paper should be impossible to do. I mean, we haven't even talked about AI. That's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. The tools I have at the ready. You with us? You with us yet? Freddie?
I'm not yet. I'm still trying to get. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly. Are you with us now? You are.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm just trying to get my earbuds in so that you can hear me clearly. So once I can get my earbuds in.
You are very clear. You are very clear, Freddie.
Okay, go ahead.
You're very clear. I want to welcome you, and it's been a while since I've seen you, but of course I know that I hear your voice and I see your words in printed media. So and of course one of the better persons to come and talk about this would of course be you. The U.S. elections have just taken place. Were you surprised at the result? What's your take in short?
Not really surprised. Kind of to an extent expected. I mean, both candidates, none were exactly my favorite. So I felt in the situation with the two candidates, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
And in fact, I really want to ask all of you this one question, and it has to do with the candidates. I will be honest with you. At the very beginning, I was very reluctant to put my support, my moral support, because I couldn't vote, behind my sister Harris. I felt that she was not rooted enough in a community that needed her to throw her forward as a so-called protector of their interests, and that's the Black community, the predominantly Black community. I did not like what Candace Owens did to her by suggesting that she was not Black enough or that she wasn't Black at all. A very curious kind of development. What did you think about the candidate, Ms. Harris, Pastor, and then of course we will go through all of you, Ali, of course. And what did you think? And share with us your take on how she performed. Were you surprised at how badly she performed ultimately? Yes.
I think she was intellectually sound. I don't buy into all of the rhetoric that Trump placed on her as being not intellectually sound or not being capable of handling herself. I think she was quite
what's going on?
Capable. Are you with me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I think she was quite capable. I just don't think that I don't know. I just think the Democrats did not fully have it together. I think in all honesty, the president was an albatross around her neck.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things that really hurt her during this election. She had difficulty separating herself from the policies and the failures of the present administration. And I understand, because being his vice president, she was walking a tightrope, but yet she was unable to disconnect herself from him. And I think that's what created a major problem.
Okay. Ali, share with us. Ali, share with us, and of course, then Ilan, share with us your take on that question. Did she perform? Did she perform as expected, or did she underperform? And of course, Pastor Malcolm Pine mentioned something which is very, very important. Was she bound by the albatross of Joe Biden?
You're taking me first, or Ilan?
Yeah. Yes.
Mommy, I want to. Okay, could you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I'm a conservative by politics. And so, like the Reverend, I thought America was kind of jammed in between a rock and a hard place regarding the candidates. I would possibly not have voted for any of them. Being a conservative, obviously, the policies of the Republicans is more conducive to my thinking. However, regarding Donald Trump, I could not relate his demeanor. I could not relate his character, how he carried on throughout the entire campaign to be a candidate I would vote for. I've tried to keep my mouth out of the politics, out of who I would vote for, but as a conservative, I would be hard pressed against voting for the Republican candidate for president. However,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you can.
No, I'm just saying I'll be hard pressed in regards to voting for Donald Trump, but he is the next president of the United States. However it works out, we're going to have to work with the United States in a Republican environment.
Ilan, your take on that question?
I see both sides. I agree with both of you. However, I do feel as though Kamala should have won. While I do understand the point where she could not have distinguished herself very much from Joe Biden, it was very hard to do. Seeing that the time she had to do it, that also played a factor in which she would have lost. But for me, I can't see how America would choose, or for me personally, I can't stand behind Trump. I mean, just morally as a 34-time convicted felon, I mean, I just don't understand. But I think on that sense, the American people looked past that. They resonated more with his policies. He was president before, so they are familiar with him in that office. A lot of people were a bit more skeptical of Kamala taking the presidency, so I could see a lot of that playing a role into why she lost.
Well, Brother White, I kind of want to agree with you, Ian, but I agree with you. But here's the problem, Ian. Trump would not have been my choice, neither Kamala, because she's a bit too liberal for me. But I understand what you're saying, Ian. But here's the reality that I'm sure you're facing there in school. The reality is racism is a reality in America.
That definitely played a factor in it.
Okay.
That definitely played a factor.
And I think what happened is, and I was sharing this in my mind, a lot of Caucasians share the views of Donald Trump.
Yes.
And I said to her, a lot of people were saying, because they didn't want to be embarrassed. They would say, "Oh, I'm going with Kamala," but deep down they were voting for Trump.
Yep.
And there was this view that the female Caucasians were going to get behind Kamala. When in essence, no, they really did not want Kamala in the sense of, let's face it, you're going to let a black woman get in before a Caucasian woman who had an opportunity?
And I agree with you, because looking at the numbers, the New York Times published on their daily newspaper this morning some numbers. Over 70% black men voted for Kamala Harris. Over 80% black women voted for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
So those were the demographics she needed, but she also needed to overperform.
So she actually got the black votes, including the black men who many were saying were not going to vote for her.
Yep.
So she got the black votes. What she did not get was the white Caucasian female votes.
And the older vote.
Yes. So there's still that psyche, that demographics that believe one way, and they espouse the views of Donald Trump. Now there's also another thing that's happening with the Democrats. That's also, Mr. Thompson, happening worldwide, which is, well, I shouldn't say worldwide, but happening in the Bahamas. There's still this sense of class and elitism, and the Democrats were moving away from the common man with the common touch, which they're supposed to be that party for. So when you start bringing in the Cheneys and bringing in the Republicans, the elite Republicans,
and
who just didn't want to be associated with Trump, but but they were not the people that the average person could identify with.
If I could jump in here,
Sure.
I do agree to some degree with the gentleman, because of course we're all Bahamians, and I think the Bahamian society is much more conservative than it is liberal. And so when we look at what has happened, I've been here for the last couple of weeks, so I've been able to go with my family to the early voting. I've been able to move around and hear and listen intently on all those things that are happening. Sometimes Bahamian society don't understand America is a white country. You can say what you want about what we see on basically the coast, on California, New York, Florida, those edges of the country where the Democrats or the liberals are so much more pervasive or predominant than the inner America. But America is a white country. You're talking over 300 million people. Most of them are white. Black people are minority. So would it not be so that although Kamala Harris was able to attempt to crack that ceiling, not that we don't think it could have happened, but America say one thing, and we're looking at it based on what was happening in the news and everything else. But they did something else last night. They did just what Pastor McAlpine said. They talked about, yes, we are going to do it, but they did not do it. They intended only to support what they believe to be the most common for them, which is the white America.
So
and as long as it is, it looks like them, they're going to be more satisfied. They would go in that direction. I'm sure for Mr. White in school, you find a microcosm of things happening on the campus. However, when we get out in America proper, we get the white America, and that's basically what happens. The Democrats
we're going to come right back in a couple of minutes, gentlemen and lady. We're going to take a break right now. We are coming live here from Global 99.5 FM, and this is the breaking point. We hope you enjoy our show so far, and of course, we'll take a break at this time.
Ready to talk to someone about your health and receive the personal attention you deserve? Imagine having clear thinking and energy every day. Welcome to New Life Natural Vegetation Cell Food Limited, a health store featuring electric cell foods to cleanse and replenish the body, plus an alkaline deli and on-site consultations. New Life, your alternative to disease, located in the Independence Drive Business Park on East Street South. Visit newlifebahamas.com or call 323-60.
Sebastian Alliance Group, SAG, where we empower small businesses to succeed, where we make the impossible possible. With our e-commerce is possible. No more brick and mortar, get digital. SAG is right here for you. US, Canada, Bahamas. You can build a website for your products, accepting credit cards or digital payments. We make it easy to process, it's seamless. Sebastian Alliance Group, SAG, where we empower small businesses to succeed.
Bahamian feel-good food in the right atmosphere. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whichever you choose. It's the Cricket Club Restaurant at Haynes Point, West Bay Street. The food is off the chain. Bahamian breakfast. We talking stew count, stew fish, and sheeptown sauce. And for lunch, crab soup, okra soup, and pea soup and dumpling. Man! And for dinner, they got mahi seafood platter or steak and shrimp. Only $28.95 per person. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner at the Cricket Club Restaurant. Call 326-4720 for reservations. Oh, and don't forget, there's a live band, The Magic Touch, every Friday night. See
Great
you
news!
there.
Ron's Electric Motors' new location on Cowpen Road, right next to Island Luck, is open Saturdays and Sundays. So for those needing repairs on electric motors, generators, welding machines, water pumps, battery chargers, electric lifts, transformers, and power tools, Ron's Cowpen Road location can have you up and running on weekends. Don't forget, you can still visit Ron's Electric Motors on Wolf Road and Claridge Road, and now Ron's new location on Cowpen Road. Dial 356-0249 or 323-5267.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the breakdown. Fayne Thompson is hosting today. In fact, it's a great opportunity to be here. I've been here before, and I've enjoyed the experience. But it's going to be hopefully compelling, a continued compelling conversation for you guys today. If you want to call in with a question or a comment, numbers are 326-0271, 326-0272. You can get us on our WhatsApp line 813-0271. You can also reach us on the Facebook page, Facebook and YouTube at Global 99 FM, Facebook and YouTube. Cable Bahamas 974. Of course, it's the contact. The website is www.global.99.5fm.com. And of course, you can tune into our radio show. Download the Global 99.5 FM app to your smart device if that is your decision, if that is your choice. We welcome you back. Now we're going to go right back to the conversation that we were having before. And now that I have my pen, I can use my stickums. I have a question for Ali, and of course a question for Pastor McAlpine. And we've moved a bit quickly through the conversation as regards the general election. First, Ali, you make a distinction between conservative and liberal. To some extent, Freddie, you also make that distinction. You don't go very much into the detail of it, but I think that there's a conversation there. Was this an ideological election, or was this just about the underlying question of race and the personality of Trump? Pastor McAlpine, lead off for us, please.
Well, when it came to Trump, you couldn't convince me that he wasn't. He has a racial overtone. He's misogynistic in a lot of his ways, in terms of his speech. Racial, misogynistic. I think he's rude. That word is narcissistic. And then when it came to Kamala, at the same time, she just goes with a whole lot of things that I just don't fully agree with. You know, you turn prisoners into transvestites, and you feel comfortable with the alphabet community, and mind you, they all have a right. But I have a problem when you try to espouse your views or to put it on our children or teach it in our schools. I think those things should be done within the home. I don't think you should. That's not the responsibility of the church, the community, or the school, or the government. Then at the same time, she was not solid with her policies. And the policies that she, again, like I said, she seemed to be very liberal. And so to me, both candidates were flawed, to be honest with you. Both were flawed. I mean, the church now will back a Donald Trump, particularly the evangelicals in the United States. But then when you look at the morale and the things that Donald Trump stands for, you ask yourself I don't see how the church can totally endorse that either. So it really was damn if you do, damn if you don't, Mr. Thompson. That's how I really saw that with both of these candidates.
Ali?
If I may, I will be a little bit more direct. I'm reading from my book, How to Reconstruct a Nation. And this is what the liberal thinking is about, just so people can understand when we differentiate and define the difference between liberal and conservative, they will have an indication as to where they stand or what it is that the American people was looking at. The liberal thinking is a belief system that government action is required to achieve equal opportunity for all. It is the ideology that obligates the government to alleviate social ills, provide equality, protect civil liberties, to secure individual and human rights, to guarantee that no one is left behind. The concept of liberal policies generally emphasize that it is the government's responsibility to solve all of the society's problem, and that is what fuels big government. And so what it is that we're looking at when we talk to Kamala Harris, in fact, most people think that she is far left liberal. So she is even more liberal. What I think is happening
you sound as if you are repeating Trump talking points. Let me tease my sister. It
No,
really
no,
seems
no.
that using your definition of liberal, it seems incredibly designed to. It almost assumes a premise, which is that the liberal point of view is something which is unacceptable, whereas the conservative view must be more acceptable. And then that's the
No,
first
no,
point.
no.
The second point, I want you to come back at me, Ali. The
Okay.
other point is too that being liberal or being conservative in the United States is the same as our understanding of liberal and conservative in the Bahamas.
Well, see, being liberal in the United States, a lot of the issues that they have in the United States is issues that define liberal and conservative is not issues that we deal with in the biggest concept of the word. We think about abortion, we think about homosexuality, we think about the LGBT rights. Those are the things that are concerned. Of course, they are now transferred into the Bahamian society. What people have said about Ms. Harris, and I have been impressed by her demeanor during her 100 days of campaign. However, when you think about the policies that goes beyond just being liberal, is far left liberal. So when you go far left liberal, that is what the pastor just discussed. The fact that when you're talking about transgender, when you're talking about this new imported areas of transgender, whether we use one bathroom, whether men can participate in women's sports if they identify as a different gender. So that is a concern what a lot of people had regarding far left. Liberals and conservatives have the same desire to have a good society. However, how it is achieved is going to be different in terms of when that happens. Now, when we look at a conservative obviously is a different thinking. When you read my book, you will realize that we discussed it. It's psychological. It's a psychological difference between liberal and conservative when we talk to the great degree. But if you're conservative thinking...
I think Dr. Gilbert has joined us. Am I correct? Welcome, Dr. Gilbert. We will be with you shortly. Welcome to Dr. Gilbert, who's joined us just recently. Real quick, Ilan, let me be fair to you. Was this distinction between liberal and conservative? You're a political science major.
I haven't even talked about the conservative yet, but go ahead.
Yes. Was it about that so-called distinction, or was there something more? Was it about race? Freddie mentions race. Was it about things which are much more fundamental to the American psyche, essentially as a society built on white privilege? What was it about in terms of why she didn't catch on? Or was it just the fact that she was a black woman?
I think a little bit of everything what you said has to go into it. It definitely was an ideological race, especially here on campus. Generally across the U.S., college campuses are more liberal, but specifically speaking to CSBSCU, we are a bit more conservative, especially it being a women's college, being St. Ben's, and then a men's university being St. John's. We are pretty much split, and then the majority of all of that being Caucasian. Our campus is pretty much more conservative, and a lot of people, or a lot of younger people in my space, for them voting for the first time, it had a lot to do with getting back to basic principles in American societies. So a lot of them did not subscribe to the LGBTQIA community. They did not subscribe to a lot of the liberal policies and ideology on the whole. So I think all of that played a role in why she lost, or what this entire election was about.
I want to come back to this particular conversation in a minute, but let me just welcome formally Dr. Gilbert. Dr. Morris, you are with us. You've had an opportunity now to meet with us. I know that you are attending an important conference. And Dr. Gilbert Morris is our ambassador at large, ladies and gentlemen. His point of view, I intend to enlist very, very shortly in terms of the international ramifications of this Trump election. But Dr. Gilbert Morris, welcome to the show, and give us your take on basically your quick point of view as regards the election victory by Mr. Trump.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here. My perspective is that of an analyst. I lived in Washington, D.C. and taught in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. And I served on a number at George Mason University. and on the Tri-State Virginia, Maryland, DC University Consortia that it has 15 universities. And so and George Mason is next to the Pentagon, the Warfighting Lab. It's next to NSA, the Secret Service. So every martial institution in the United States, George Mason sits right there. So when I walk into my class, I would just see brass sitting up. And it is in that context that I worked as both a professor and a political analyst and economist. Now, my feeling about the election was that from the very beginning, and I wrote this last night in several chats that I'm part of, that what you must look at is the trends and the momentum. And it seemed to me that Trump is the head of a movement, whereas Ms. Harris is head of a party. And that means that Mr. Trump's support is very solid and almost unchanging. And unless someone has a reason to sort of become enthused about the movement, and Ms. Harris's support was always based on what people thought about her and whether or not she said the right thing and whether or not she had a policy position that was agreed with and so on. And when you have a movement is a cultural thing. A political party is a strategic thing. And Leon Williams, our former head of BTC and now ambassador to the ITU, has a very interesting phrase, and that is, culture will eat strategy for breakfast every morning. And that is what happened in this election. Culture, not the culture that Kamala Harris was talking about, but there's a support for Mr. Trump in the sense that America had become too, I don't use the term woke because both sides are using it the wrong way. So I don't use that because I think it causes confusion. But there's a sense in middle America that America become over normalized with all sorts of little fussy rules of social engagement. There's another part of America on the part of billionaires that America had become too festooned with regulations that prevented them from doing what they would like to do, even though much of what they would like to do has crashed the US economy on a number of occasions, not least of which is 2008. There are a large number of wealthy Americans who enjoy the idea of tax cuts and exemptions and the ability to bypass various tax rules and so on to avoid the opprobrium of the US government and to maintain as much of their wealth as possible. And Mr. Trump answers that call for them. And then there is a group that loves what they perceive as hypermasculinity. And that is the kind of man who just says whatever he wants, whenever he wants, because they want the opportunity to do the same thing. And so this movement is made up of those things. On the racial front, I'll only say that there is, having lived in DC and worked in America and so on, there is an underlying theme that the brown population and the increasing presence of women in the population has caused somewhat of a backlash. And you can say that without having to get into all the racial and gender arguments and that kind of thing. But so Trump represents this movement made up of all these various things: billionaires, wealthy people who want to keep as much as their money, business people who don't want regulations, hyper-masculine males who like the idea of men who just say whatever they want when they feel like. To them, it's not racial, cuts across many lines. And I have to hasten to add, in this Trump side of the movement, that Hispanics, particularly those who recently came to America, are used to strongman figures in their own communities. and they came into America. And you know what that saying is? That a club is best preserved by the people who are the recent entries. So the recent entries into America, the last thing they want are more people from their circumstances to enter because they would have to share benefits. That's the Trump movement. On the other side, you have Harris, and Harris has a unique situation. She didn't go through the primary process where she could hone her message and test her message in the marketplace. She took over for Biden and basically inherited Biden's team, right? So the policies and ideas were put together very, very quickly. And what they did is they just reached into all of the various liberal communities and tried to make sure they had a salad that everyone could see themselves reflected in that salad. The problem with that politics is the individual components of that salad may not be large enough to scale over an entire population for the political interests of an entire group sufficient to support a presidential campaign. So last night, at the beginning of the night, and maybe like 4 days ago, I've been following the Economist's poll. And the Economist kept switching back and forth between 50.1% for Donald Trump, 49% for Kamala
So,
Harris.
Dr. Gilbert, so you don't lose all of us. You would suggest then that this election had more to do, I guess, with the economy more than anything else. And whereas I hear you saying Trump have a movement, I could accept that. But I think it was more cultish because some of the people you described, I could find them supporting Kamala as well. She had billionaire support and great entertainers. But at the end of the day, I still felt that her message, and America is just what it is, her message just wasn't penetrating. And as I said earlier before you came, Biden was basically an albatross around her neck. And as you mentioned.
I could accept all of that except with this distinction. The billionaires who are around Trump, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Yosha Bach, Elon Musk, and then their poster boy Joe Rogan. These are people from a very specific class of billionaires. They are known as the bro culture. They come from technology, largely from California.
Got you. Accept that. And the average Bahamian don't even know half of those people. They're probably the only one they do recognize is Elon Musk. That's all well and good, Doc. But at the end of the day, Professor, Your Excellency, tell us, why then did the average man, ordinary person,
right?
Why did the Hispanics, who's referred to in the vernacular as garbage, and has been known to be called rapists and criminals by this man, but yet 54% of them overwhelmingly supported Trump?
Yeah, but that's not new. They supported.
No. It's new on this occasion. His numbers were growing. It's new on this occasion because the Republicans don't have that kind of support. That is like a natural thing for them to support the Democrat. My argument is, and I hear you, why was the average man, after all the rhetoric, after all of the insults and innuendos, why was it that the average man find it more complicit or complacent or favorable to go with that of a Donald Trump?
Well, here's the point. I'm coming to that. Take, for instance, Florida. Florida is dominated by varieties of Hispanic votes, so different Hispanic countries and so on, and the elderly vote. The elderly vote feels more comfortable because the kind of candidates that the Democrats are offering are exotic candidates that are easy in a country like America to paint them as somehow being outside of the mainstream. When you add to that some of the policies that they advocate, both their identity and the policies they advocate just became too much for that class of people. That's one. Number two, Reagan was supported by Hispanics. Bush was supported by Hispanics. Trump is supported by Hispanics.
We got all of that. But no, but Reagan and Bush did not insult the Hispanic community. Not just
Yeah,
this time. Remember his first run, he told you that they were rapists and gangsters. And so to speak so disparaging.
I don't put too much by that, because in the political sphere, in Liberia, they had a song during Charles Taylor's election. You kill my ma, you kill my pa, but I'm still going to vote for you. So human beings are very, very complex in that way. So I don't really, and there's also something, and I don't want to clump all Hispanic people together.
Yes.
But there
There
is a tendency amongst that group. If you're in Dominican Republic, they hate being called black. If you're in Brazil, they hate being called. If you're in Colombia, they could be as black as you and I. So in Brazil, a person of my complexion who has money and speaks English is considered white. So white is a wealth class, and you have these Hispanic countries with different ideas and ideals of identity about race.
Absolutely.
In America, and all of those identities collapse into whiteness rather than shades of blackness.
Well, gentlemen, let me just see if I can add to an anecdote. By no means am I going to suggest it's an historical piece. I'm sure Elan will correct me if I get it wrong. But traditionally, many of these Hispanic communities have been forsworn to an anti-communist ethos, which has been very popular in those communities for many, many years. The Republican Party was the natural home for most Latin Americans, especially in the southern parts of the United States. Florida being one, New York, parts of Atlanta. They have been traditionally firmly anti-democratic in terms of their political persuasion.
Yeah.
See the Republican Party as a party of the anti-communist party. And of course, remember now, the Cubans in particular dominate in the southern parts of Florida. But having said that, gentlemen, let me just see if I can retract this. I like the conversation. It seems to suggest that there's some very deep issues, much more deeper issues that we can look to. But I'm more interested now, Elan, and of course, Ms. McIntosh. How then do we practically assess the performance of the Democratic Party in deciding to put her forward, having regard for all the clear problems they would have had to make this candidacy work? Was it a mistake from the beginning?
I don't.
Well, I think, Mr. Fayne, and welcome, Dr. Gilbert, Professor. It's good to see you.
Hello, my friend.
It's good to see you. I thank you, and I appreciate your assessment of what you think. It's always highly intellectual. I do believe, though, before we go there, about what the Democratic Party in their decision to put Kamala at the very last minute, which was, of course, it was a bad decision in that she should have been allowed to run from the primaries, because Joe Biden, obviously, it was clear that he would not be able to finish an entire campaign. We see that it was clear. It was clear. So her having only 100 days, a little over 100 days to be able to put forward a campaign, all that has been explained. It's very clear the Democrats in their message, in their desire to be novel in regards to putting up a candidate that all of those persons across America who come from somewhere else, who might be a minority, that became the issue of them trying to get their vote. And as I think Gilbert did say, Dr. Morris did say, the point is the mainstream America wants to keep America like it is. And they get kind of wary when you're trying to move the pendulum to integrate everybody in everything. And I see that even when we look, and I guess later on I will talk about what the conservative view is, or their belief system. It is clear that people wanted to maintain that. They wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to continue to prosper big businesses. That's why they supported Trump. A lot of people who are just people who work in a job, they want to support big businesses. When big businesses want to continue to prosper, they're going to push behind a candidate that's going to make sure that their business continue to have the biggest benefit. or the biggest, I wouldn't say tax break, but profit in that regard. But in terms of Kamala going forward, she was speaking to a regular Joe Blow America who want taxes cut on their income and the smallest possible minute issues. But that did not go along with the America who want to make sure that America continues to be the big bully in the scene of the world scene.
So she failed to speak the language of that elector. Let me ask Ilan, your assessment real quick. We only have a couple of seconds before we go to break, but Ilan, was it doomed from the beginning?
I would say no. I don't think they were wrong for picking her. Her being the vice president at the point in time, she would have been.
She wasn't tested. She wasn't tested, Ilan. She didn't seem to have the philosophical message based upon what we're hearing right now.
I was getting to that. She when it came now to her being the forefront now or the forerunner, she did not have a clear message to voters. She didn't have enough time to present a clear message. So I think all of that played a role.
Okay, all right. Ilan, do you have an assessment from there where you are on the ground as regards the impact, the response of the Black community? You know that the elephant in the room is was she the right candidate for the Black community and Black voters? And was it perhaps again a bit unfair to just throw her into the mix, having regard for people like Candace Owens, who did such a tremendous job on calling her white and so forth, uncaring?
I would say I don't think the black community here on campus, they would have preferred another candidate. The general sentiments around that, they don't think she was the right candidate. A lot of them brought up her past as a prosecutor and how she treated Black people in California. So a lot of them didn't think she really had their best interest at heart, going based off of her past. So I think that is something that she needs, or the Democratic Party needs to work on, because I think that has been something as a party they are failing on. They are gradually losing the Black vote. The Black voters are getting wary of the Democratic Party, believe it or not. And we've seen in this election, surprisingly, Trump got a lot of Black voters to vote for him, more than people thought. So that says a lot in itself.
Okay. Ilan, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break in a couple of seconds. Let me again remind our listeners, 326-0271, 326-0272. Feel free to chime in if you wish by way of question or comment. We're here on The Breakdown, and we're having a conversation with some luminaries, young and not so young, but good people. And we're going to be back after this break. We'll be right back.
Who don't want a house they can touch it?
post-mortem. Re-emergence of this man called Trump, alleged rapist, alleged racist, multiple an offender, convicted, a man who has some very conservative views. The Middle East is afire. What role will he play? The Bahamas, of course, is a small developing nation, has its own demands. What role will developing countries, or what must developing countries look forward to as we move forward? These are some of the questions that we're going to put to our guest today. We have Dr. Gilbert Morris with us. We have Pastor Frederick McAlpine, former parliamentarian. We also have S. Ali McIntosh, my good friend, political activist, author. And of course, we have Mr. Elan White with us from the United. In fact, all of them are somewhere in the Bahamas. 2 in Freeport, one I think one in Atlanta, and another one is in Elan. Where are you?
I'm in Minnesota.
Elan, where are you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm in Minnesota.
And he's in Minnesota. So we have an international cast here today. Let me get right back into it. And I just want to again start off by asking the audience the question. Her political career, Ali McIntosh, where does it go? Where to now for Ms. Harris? Where to now? Is she done?
Oh boy, it's hard to say. I think someone made a comment to say that, that she seems to be moving quickly off the scene just because she is lost. For a person like me, who is a persistent person, I would hope that as a Black woman, she would, I guess she can give it another chance. I'm not akin to her policy, but she is trying to achieve something for women. I am hoping. She may be, when you come to the pinnacle, sometimes the only thing from there is left stage. So we don't know exactly where she will go.
The Democratic Party needed a stand-in. The Democratic establishment had no faith in Biden's ability to win. I'm going to suggest to you that she has been used, and now I think she will just simply step into history. And notice I did not say the dustbin of history. I think there's a role for her to play. But I do believe, having regard for the look back that we've been taking so far, that essentially, in terms of her political appeal, if Michelle Obama and others like her emerge at the appropriate time, the governor from Pennsylvania, I don't see how she can possibly compete. Dr. Morris, and of course, Pastor McAlpine, what say you?
Okay, to your question, Kamala Harris was thrust into the vice presidency. You remember, she performed very badly as a candidate on her own.
Mm-hmm.
The reason she was chosen is because when you have a weak president, when I say a weak president, I don't mean that President Biden is a weak person. I mean, physically, he was weak. When that happens, you have a very strong support cast, meaning your support cast becomes very, very powerful if the president himself is weak in some way. So Reagan, for instance, delegated a lot because he was not a physically strong man. So he had all these powerful people around him who saw their opportunity because you didn't have a vibrant young president. They chose Kamala Harris because she's a team player. She doesn't rock the boat. She was going to be vice president. She was going to listen to Biden's team and not interfere with whatever it is they wanted to do. Her problem is that ended up saddling her with everything from warmongering in the Pacific to warmongering in Ukraine to genocide in Israel to all the various other policies that are Biden's policies. All right. But she never had the gravitas because she does not have a team. And then when Biden became incapacitated and Barack Obama please understand this, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton told him, get thee to a nunnery. All right. They selected the team around Biden selected Kamala because they thought they would be more powerful with her as president because she would have to lean on them. All right. So they wrote her policies for her. So when she's speaking the policies, they don't come to her naturally because they're not her policies. They belong to the Democratic establishment, right? That belongs to Barack Obama and Biden, right? And so here's Kamala in this situation performing as she's had to do so many times in her life to pick up the ideas and so on. So people say, is her career over? Essentially, yes, because she does not have a team. All her political career, she was supported by the Getty family or one member of the Getty family, right? That's not a team. Bill Clinton had a team. Barack Obama built a team. People all over the country, networks, myBarackObama.com with 2.5 million people on it, student groups, workers, all these sorts of people. Kamala Harris did not have that. All the donors. Remember, Kamala Harris tried to save the job of the president of Harvard University, another black woman. She couldn't. Why? Because the people who were supporting Biden were trying to kill Professor Gay. So Kamala couldn't put herself in the middle there and say, I support the president of Harvard, because she would lose the support for her vice presidential charge. So she is what you might call a prophylactic candidate. And that makes it.
I have to concur with His Excellency on this one. I concur with him on that.
Okay.
He said it all in that regards.
Okay. Listen, for those of you listening in, please join us if you will. 326-0271, 326-0272. We have our WhatsApp line, 813-0271. We have luminaries on the online. In fact, these type of discussions are very, very important, very, very helpful in terms of moving the conversation ahead, because we must now begin to appreciate where the Bahamas stand in all of this. And this is where our focus now turns to the one and only, the inimitable Donald J. Trump, a man who has definitely defied the odds, because there's no question. Last night, he pulled off what I would consider to be a small miracle. Let's begin with the youngest of us and then go through to get an assessment in that regard. Elon White. What say you? What was that all about? What say you, Elon?
Could you repeat again, please? You got
Trump's return. A near miracle, was it, or was it something which was in the cards, unexpected? Should we have known better?
For me, it was something. I thought I thought America was going to go different. But after I saw the results start to come in and I noticed he won, I wasn't surprised anymore. I think Trump, whether you like him or not, I think he has done something that has been almost undone before in history, or at least in recent history. To have the record he has had, 34 felony counts, 1 conviction, 6 bankruptcies, 2 impeachments, and to still come back in a non-consecutive way and win the White House. I mean, that's something to be talked about in generations to come.
Go ahead.
In terms of his presidency, I am eager to see what will be done. In terms of cabinet positions, I'm interested to see where or if he might appoint people like Elon Musk to serve in the White House or serve around him. That will be something interesting to see. And just the general mood, I guess, globally on how Trump presidency will look and how other countries would react to that.
The man has an array of former felons, people who've gone and done prison time, now back on the streexts, and they're looking for jobs.
What will be interesting to see now is if government jobs.
For example, Rudy Giuliani, for example, the good gentleman who just came, I call him Josie Wells with the flashy gray, white hair. I can't remember his name.
Roger Stone.
He just came out of prison. A whole number of people need work, and they are some of his trusted men. The good general who went to prison for a short period of time. I forget his name too. But the whole host of persons who will not establish the guardrails that the American democracy may now need to survive. What say you, Ali, and of course, Dr. Morris and Mr. McElvine? What say you? They're going to be guardrails for this man.
I believe that was a miracle that many of us wasn't expecting would happen, but that only a miracle could have been pulled off in that way. And when I echo the sentiments of Mr. White regarding all of those issues, and yet America went in the direction of Trump, you can say, I mean, you will be stunned, because you are wondering, what are they thinking about with all the moral infractions, with all of the charges? You're wondering, are we prepared to forget all of those things to go with a president just because that's on your team? You know, I think somebody once says that, you know, something would be bad, but if it's benefiting them, then they have no problem with it. I have issues with the moral implications of Trump. I have issues with the fact that the church would side with Trump, but because of the moral issues, but it was obviously a miracle that happened. How it happened and why it is beyond me. But for him to pull it off, it was serious.
So Ali, a miracle occurred yesterday as far as you were concerned. It was miraculous, unanticipated, a shock.
Hey, when you say miraculous, it infers something else. I don't want to say it like that, because
no, it
was
wasn't
not
the
my
intervention
first.
of the dear Lord. No, it was not the intervention of the dear Lord in this instance. Maybe the fellow from the other side, but not the dear Lord.
Go ahead.
Let me just ask the question, Pastor Michael Pine.
I think, to be honest with you, I think the Democrats have to share the blame for what took place yesterday. Trump had a lot of sympathy. Some of this is, okay, first of all, I think the Democrats going to have to do some soul searching, really have to, in terms of their organization. Number two, I think when you brought these federal cases against him, it looked political. Even if it wasn't, the perception was political. And people began to have more sympathy. Every time you brought a case to him, his numbers rose in the polls. So going beyond all his moral infractions, politically, the Democrats have to take some responsibility for some of this, to parade their man before the court, the former president. He was alienated because of some of his policies and his actions by the other presidents. People begin to look more in his corner, and they begin to identify more with Trump for some of the things that were happening. Now, do I agree with what Trump's been doing in terms of some of the things? For instance, I never could understand a man who liked to seem so xenophobic and so anti-foreign, but yet most of his children, with the exception of one, are with foreign women. He's always married foreign, with the exception of one. He himself, his family were foreign. So I don't understand, at the end of the day, how America saw all of this and continued to vote for him simply because, I won't call it miraculous, the infractions were there, but at the end of the day, I think more human beings identified with Trump's, even his language, his behavior on the political scene, more than we think. And that can also speak to the moral decay, socially, spiritually, and politically, globally, as to where we're at.
Now, I have to ask the question, and Dr. Morris, I want you to assist us with this particular one question. Trump has promised on day one he's going to be a dictator. He said, at least for one day, he's going to get forgive him one day. He has to be a strong man and do whatever he wishes. Is the American democracy as we know it, is this project known as the so-called beacon on the hill in serious trouble? Dr. Gilbert,
Project, they have something which Peter Thiel wrote called Project 2025. And if you haven't seen it, your readers should go and look it up on the internet. It's really a dystopian dictatorship manifesto for America. That's number one. Number two, Trump really, I know what my good friend Ali means, but I've been associated with politics, at least on the analytical side, for too long to regard any of it as a miracle. And really, the Princeton University did a study in 2015, and in the study it showed that 70% of all legislation and policies in the United States, even when more than 50% of the population disagrees with the policy, gets pushed through because of special interests.
Social interest, yes.
So the policy, if you want to look it up online, it says, "Is America a plutocracy?" A plutocracy is where the wealthy control the politics, right? That's the short version of it. So on this, so that's one element of dictatorship, right? Let me give you another frame of dictatorship. It's called a vertical of power. Trump has the presidency. The Supreme Court exempted Trump from normal presidential responsibility, basically extending immunities to the person holding the office of president. So essentially, he could shoot anybody, as he said, in the street, and the Supreme Court seems willing to exempt him. He has control of the Senate, although not a filibuster-proof Senate, and it looks like they may be very close on the Congress. But when you have a small margin, remember this, when you have a small margin and a transactional president, if he is 3 or 4 votes short, they're just going to bribe the living daylights out of those 4 people to get what they want. So 3 or 4 short means he's got the majority.
He has a unified government. A unified government.
Say again?
He would have a unified government.
Yeah, he would have. So that's called a vertical of power, meaning that your power runs from your office all the way down through all aspects of the government, which means you can't oppose him on anything. You can't oppose him. Last point about dictatorship. The men who surround Trump, the billionaires, they have a name. They're actually known as the PayPal Mafia. They were the guys who invented PayPal, including Elon Musk. But remember, Peter Thiel is the man that Trump fears the most. Peter Thiel is the one who bought the Senate seat for J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel is the first investor in Facebook. Peter Thiel is the one who taught the guys at Google how to build Google into a company. He taught Mark Zuckerberg how to build a website into a corporation that has turned out to be the largest country in the history of the world. All right? Peter Thiel, when Trump won before, his behavior was the equivalent of a 4-year-old throwing spaghetti at a ceiling fan. That's not going to be the case this time. This time, he has men around him who are ambitious, who have a God complex, all of whom are billionaires, and believe they have the solutions for society. And they have built large corporations that are larger than 80% of the world's countries. So you have to understand, so in terms of dictatorship, we don't need to call it that. We don't want to be presumptuous. But all the elements and the makings and the open structures are there for an essential dictatorship. Last point, Kurt Gödel was the world's most brilliant mathematician, and Einstein loved Kurt Gödel so much that he said, I live next door to Kurt Gödel so I could listen to him explain to God how to run the world. That's how brilliant he was trying to make out that Kurt Gödel is. So for my brother, Bishop Barry Morris, I'm not blaspheming, I'm just reporting. And to Bishop McAlpine as well. Here's what Kurt Gödel, Einstein got him from Austria before the Nazis took over Austria into the United States. And to do this, he had to become a citizen and read the US Constitution. Remember, this is the world's greatest logician and mathematical logician. So he reads it on the way over. When he lands and he puts his hand up to take the oath to become a US citizen, The officer says to him, and now you have escaped forever dictatorship in Europe. And he says, oh, not quite. And he tried to point to places in the Constitution where logically, if you look at it using his logical analysis, the US could become a dictatorship. Trump's vertical of power is one of the examples that he gives of how the US could be a dictatorship. We're talking 1936. He wrote that, Kurt Gödel. You could find it in a book called The Friendship of Einstein and Gödel.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all elements of how a system can, in fact, reconnoiter itself, and the checks and balances are removed. Trump doesn't like checks and balances. The billionaires around him don't like checks and balances. The people who support him are hooray, hooray for checks and balances. They're just an irritation. And checks and balances in the Constitution have become examples of checks and balances in society, where you can't speak to people in a racist way, you can't talk to women in a disrespectful way. These are all checks and balances with which a larger majority of the American population have become impatient.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Dr. Morris, we're having a good exchange here, saving except that I believe that this conversation is going to go on, and in fact, a very long time. I suspect that it would never end tonight. So I'm going to try to redirect one query to you. Let's begin though with Mr. White. Mr. White, in short, is American democracy, in your opinion, safe moving forward?
No. Simply put, no. When you have that vertical line of power, when you have the Supreme Court of the United States at your fingertip, when they've already given you practically a God power in the White House, when you have the Senate at in your control now, when you have the House at a very slim majority, and someone like Trump as the president, democracy is not safe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That being the case, give us an update as regards the numbers so far, the Electoral College. Give us perhaps your projected view as to where let's say the Republican Party or the Democratic Party will be in the future. Is the Republican Party now done? It's now MAGA.
Oh yeah. It's been MAGA from the day Trump announced his 2016 election campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Republican Party has changed since then. Now it's gotten even worse. When you see other people like Trump also getting elected, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene or Josh Hawley or other Republican extremists, that is scary because now they are at every level in government.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty scary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now the Bahamas, of course, we're a little nation. They say a pimple in the backside of the great superpower. But of course, we have a point of view. We see our Prime Minister recently has taken a very brave stand. In fact, I when I get a chance, I want to see him. The Minister of Foreign Affairs announced that on the question of reparations, the Bahamas will be steadfast in taking a certain position, notwithstanding the so-called reticence of the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Starmer. Dr. Gilbert, you may be, Dr. Gilbert Morris, you may be aware of this. Now dealing with Trump, I want to focus as we move on, especially in the next segment of the show, as regards the domestic and foreign politics as it relates to Donald Trump and American democracy. Where does that place the Bahamas in the scheme of things? Are we looking at a situation where we have a friend in the North? They say when Republicans are in power, the Bahamian economy flourishes. That's what they say. So what are we looking at? I really want to have that conversation to see if we could actually nail some of those issues down. But before we do that, let me give the numbers again: 326-0271, 326-0272, 813-0271. That's the last number would be the WhatsApp line. Call us, feel free if you wish. And you can join the conversation, ask a question or two. This really should be part of the University of the Bahamas discussion for the students to sit down and listen to. It's informative, it's educational, it's the kind of debate that you will very rarely hear in this context right after a major election. Has the world changed yesterday? What do you foresee? What do you foresee, Pastor Michael Pine? What do you foresee Ms. Of course, Ali, what do you foresee happening in terms of international world politics? Trump as president of the United States, what do you foresee?
Yeah, my concern, if I may, okay, my concern, if I may, and I appreciate the analysis of Dr. Gilbert. He does lay it out clear for us to understand, having been living in Washington for the time that he has. But I do agree with Mr. White, because since Trump hijacked the Republican Party, it is kind of way I think about it, because if I lived in the United States, if I voted in the United States, I would most likely be a Republican. And this has been my thinking for quite a while. However, I do believe that when you begin to align the power like it is even at this point, the level of accountability goes out of the door. So even though we are thinking how we are going to manage going forward with Donald Trump, we are going to have to understand and be able to appreciate where we are in the process. And when we're talking about locally, I'm sure the world is going to be changed. It appears a lot of Americans kind of like bullies. They appreciate what it is Trump brings to the table. I do have an issue with that idea of politics. We women want to participate in politics. We don't want to have to deal with the bully. We would hope that there are other men in the environment whose basic inner thrust is to protect everyone participating. And so that's the only fear I have for democracy, is that this level of power, this level of aligning power with big interests, special interests, money interests, that a lot of the smaller people, a lot of the smaller interests may not come forward. When we look at the rule of law, when we look at what a republic is supposed to be, it's supposed to deal with majority rules and also minority rights. Will that happen under a big government that a person with the characteristic, with the alignment of Trump, how would that work in the world going forward? So not just only in the Bahamas, whether we're going to prosper because he loves good big businesses, but whether we are going to be able to participate on the platform as leadership within the world. So that is a concern, the level of accountability that's going to be had with Trump and the alignments that Dr. Morris indicated.
There seems to be can you hear me?
Yes,
there seems to be a phobia when it comes to Trump. People are concerned. I know many of the concerns would be what's going to happen with Ukraine and Russia, what's going to take place with Israel and Palestine and Lebanon and the Iranians. People are going to be concerned about China and Taiwan. They're going to be concerned about the economy. What can we expect in that regards? What's going to happen? Why people are going to wonder about the friendships, which we alluded to during the campaign. He seems to have this fetish or insatiable desire to be like or to hang out with known dictators and strongmen, political strongmen. So people are concerned. I was at one point going to ask Dr. Gilbert, is there such thing as a democratic dictatorship? Because that's almost what you're kind of leading towards, as if we're moving towards, with Trump, a democratic dictatorship. Mind you, I put it on Trump, but sometimes you wonder if that's what is espoused even in our region, if there is such a thing as a democratic dictatorship. We talk about the democracy, but at the end of the day, we still seem to be led by a lot of persons with dictator mentalities and dictatorship kind of ambitions, or they tend to lead with that kind of say it, do as I say and not as I do type of attitude. So I don't know. It leaves the global world in a precarious position. You also have to think about NATO and the European Unions. There's so much ambiguity now because of him being elected so much. And it's almost a wait and see situation, really.
Is it fairly certain, Pastor McAlpine, that we can look forward to some major blunder, some major faux pas, some major concern arising fairly soon with the volatile nature of this man? I'm going to ask you and definitely Dr. Morris.
Listen,
I want you to look at that question.
It's in his nature. One of the things too that Trump seems to love drama. Drama just seems to follow him. This is going to be very, very, very interesting because, like I say, people are very concerned. Here's a man that told you during COVID, he wanted to recommend bleach to be injected into us. I mean, you just never know what he's going to say. You never know what he's going to do. You don't know how he's going to respond. Here's a man that doesn't even really believe in climate change.
Yeah. Okay.
And these are the things we're going to have to face. And we have put a lot of responsibility back into the hands of a man that really seems to be very versatile and really.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back, Pastor McAlpine, because I want you to continue that thought. We're gonna come back, and what we will discuss on the other side of the break, essentially, is the big question: is humanity safe in the hands of the man who now stands atop the American democracy, that beacon on the hill? Is humanity safe? We're gonna go into some issues when we get back. This is the breakdown. And we hope you are enjoying our conversation today. We'll be right back.
Ready to talk to someone about your health and receive the personal attention you deserve? Imagine having clear thinking and energy every day. Welcome to New Life Natural Vegetation Cell Food Limited, a health store featuring electric cell foods to cleanse and replenish the body, plus an alkaline deli and on-site consultations. New Life, your alternative to disease, located in the Independence Drive Business Park on East Street South. Visit newlifebahamas.com or call 323-6080.
You don't want a house that you can touch and control. Turn on your lights while you still on the road. One press of a button, let the music get your soul. Let us come true, turn your house to home. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. If you in the West, just take a stop by. We sell a lot of things, but we don't sell out. Guarantee great service, we by your side. Touch control, touch control, touch control, touch control. You want a house you can touch and control. You gotta call touch control.
Couldn't get more artists out. Had to figure out a better route. Who would've thought it'd be saving time? Cause I could finally make my payments online. I just did it, it was done fast, yeah. I just signed up the sun cash, yeah. It worked for me, it could work for you. Sebastian the Line School. Whoa. Sebastian the Line School. Taking care of all your online needs. Anything with e-commerce, we got you.
Bahamian feel-good food in the right atmosphere. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whichever you choose. It's the Cricket Club Restaurant at Haynes Point, West Bay Street. The food is off the chain. Bahamian breakfast. We talking stew conch, stew fish, and sheeptown sauce. And for lunch, crab soup, okra soup, and pea soup and dumpling. Man! And for dinner, they got mahi seafood platter or steak and shrimp. Only $28.95 per person. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner at the Cricket Club Restaurant. Call 326-4720 for reservations. Oh, and don't forget, there's a live band, The Magic Touch, every Friday night. See
Great
you
news!
there.
Ron's Electric Motors' new location on Cowpen Road, right next to Island Luck, is open Saturdays and Sundays. So for those needing repairs on electric motors, generators, welding machines, water pumps, battery chargers, electric lifts, transformers, and power tools, Ron's Cowpen Road location can have you up and running on weekends. Don't forget, you can still visit Ron's Electric Motors on Wolf Road and Claridge Road, and now Ron's new location on Cowpen Road. Dial 356-0249 or 323-5267.
Welcome back on the breakdown. It's now getting a bit late in the evening, 5:32. We have a read for you. Looking for the perfect fence to secure your property and elevate your home style. look no further than Fencing Rasta, where we provide top quality fences built to last. Whether it's privacy, security, or curb appeal you're after, we offer a wide range of options. Visit us now on Facebook or Instagram at Fencing Rasta to view our work. Our one-man fencing expert ensures slow, reliable, and affordable installation every time. WhatsApp 820-3356 today. Fencing Rasta, protecting what matters most, your life and your loved ones. Let's get back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. What we have is a continued conversation. I really now we want to get into the weeds. We want to get into the weeds. Ali McIntosh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, before the election, there was a war that was not waging in the Middle East. It was the war between the non-war between the low-level war between Iran and the state of Israel. Now, you know how the Bahamian people feel about the so-called quote-unquote promised land. I have an opinion about that, but I'm going to just use that kind of language. Some of us understand that. Trump, before he was defeated, ended the Iran deal, which Obama had struck with the Iranians, that there would be a cap met on the Iranian use of nuclear fuels to create a bomb. And the Iranians were committed to that. When Trump became president, he scrapped it. In his first edition of being president of the United States, he scrapped that particular relationship. And the Americans also had to hand over $1 billion, which had been seized, I gather, back to the Iranians as a result of that deal they struck. It was considered to be a bad deal made by Obama. Trump said that. Since then, the Middle East has blown up. Netanyahu in Israel has done his best to force the United States into a war with Iran. They have also continued the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza, much to the chagrin of the world community, much to the condemnation of the world community, and very few people have been able to stop them or to stay their hands. Trump does not pretend that when he agreed to the move to establishing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, what his position was. He is firmly in the corner of Israel as it relates to a potential international conflagration between Iran and Israel, which will throw the entire world into a desperate situation. Ali McIntosh, need we be concerned about the international policies, the future foreign policies of Donald J. Trump, and the future of humanity?
I am very concerned about all of that. Over the last 20 or 25 years, of course, when I lived in Washington or attended American University, I actually lived in the house with a Palestinian. And I'm saying this as a side. And they tried to recruit me to kind of tell their story in English, English being my first language. I met her boyfriend, which happened to be a Hezbollah. And so as I looked at the situation from back then to even now, this has been like a ball back and forth. I know there's a religious concern about Israel, and of course, Trump stands on that side of the religious support of Israel. But what has been happening recently has been a tremendous concern for me as I look at the humanitarian issue that has been developed in Israel, in Palestine, in the Gaza. I mean, I'm almost terrified by it all. The fact that Trump now is the president, he will side with Israel. Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, I assume, in addition to his post as the president or prime minister of Israel, he too has his tendency of terrorism. So I am concerned about where this will go, how this will escalate to the next level. And I've been trying to keep my mouth out of it in terms of how it develops. But even with the new threat to Iran, and I am not a Muslim, but I'm concerned for humanity's care and how this is going to end. I mean, children, women, men are being slaughtered, and I can't agree with it. What concerns me most about this whole debacle with the election of Trump and with his demeanor is that all of that we have been known to be moral conservatism, what's supposed to be good core values. these things that when we see in opposition, when we see in Mr. Trump, and I'm saying this in a political way, when we see in him, and yet our support or undaunting support of what he is doing, I can't without reservation support. And I know that even as a religious person, even as a spiritual person, and we know that God can use anyone. He may be able to change, but I am very concerned, Mr. Thompson. I am telling you that I sit like at the edge of my seat in regards to what will happen next in the region with Mr. Trump becomes officially becomes the president. How would that escalate? What would that mean for the rest of the world? Because if that Middle East region goes to war, we who try to, and as you see, Bahamians are traveling everywhere. It means we have to be stayed at home because we can't go anywhere where this war is happening. I'm terrified. I can't put my support on any side. I'm concerned for humanity. Whether it's safe in the hands of Trump, I cannot say.
Mr. White, what say you? Same question.
I wholeheartedly agree with Mrs. McIntosh. I am also worried about what the world will look like under Trump. When you see so many wars happening right now, proxy wars going on, you see genocides happening. America needs a president right now who can come in place and really take America's place yet again on the global scale. Whether I guess this is up for debate, but America globally right now is seen as a joke. So America needs a president right now that could have it be taken more seriously abroad. And like Mrs. McIntosh says, when you have Trump and then you have leaders like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and then you also have other leaders like in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and then in Russia, it's a scary time to be a part of the world. All of these world leaders trying to seek power and are very hungry for it and are willing to do so much things for it. I mean, it's very scary.
Pastor McAlpine, your take.
I was saying it earlier. I think it's a tragedy where we're basically at a point where we're holding our breath, trying to figure out what's going to be the next move. You now have a man that's now in charge of, who now basically has control of the Supreme Court, the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency. At the same time, you have all these fires taking place on the global scale, as I stated before we went to break. Then he has people like Marjorie Taylor in his corner. He's got quite a few radicals and a few people who politically just seem like the elevator don't go all the way up. And when you got these people around you, and then you got to question Trump sometimes, what time of the day it is for him. You wondering if he took his medication. So we're up a creek, and we're between a rock and a hard place. Here's a man, he loves dictators, he loves strong men. You have all these fires, like I say, Taiwan and China. You got Ukraine and Russia. You've got Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel dealing with Hezbollah, dealing with Iran, dealing with Palestinians. That's a ticking time bomb consistently. You got the NATO forces, who Trump does not necessarily seem to want to support. He doesn't believe in climate change. This is going to be interesting. After January, January 20th or 22nd, somewhere around there, and he takes presidency. It's going to be very interesting as to where the global world will stand, because believe it or not, everybody still in this global sphere looks to the United States for guidance, for directions, for the economy, and you really need someone with a sober head. And you know, it really depends on what side of the bed sometimes Mr. Trump wakes up on, that you'll determine how it's going to be. It's very ambiguous, Mr. Thompson. Very ambiguous.
Pastor McAlpine, we also have the developing issues, and you've mentioned them. You've mentioned a whole number of them. but we also have the developing issue that he now has to form a cabinet. And Mr. Morris, Dr. Morris, I want you to answer this too. He has to form a cabinet. He needs a chief of staff. Clearly, he has a problem with the military. Most of his former military leaders and advisors abandoned him, derided him, including his vice president. The chief of staff, I think Mark Milley, talked about him being a fascist. Literally used the word fascist, that dirty word. And not just him, but multiple Republican former senators and persons very close to him, congressmen, persons very close to him. I've referred to him as a man who's fundamentally flawed. Fundamentally flawed. That's the language they've been using. Dr. Morris and Pastor Marklepine, what are we to expect? Dr. Morris, and specifically, Dr. Morris, I also want you to address the concern of the role of the Bahamas in all of this. If there's to be one that we can play.
Let's get a frame. There is no Republican Party, right? We have to accept that. There is no Republican Party, and let's stop calling them conservatives. They're not conservatives. They are MAGA, whatever that means. And remember, this is the third major structural change for the party, maybe the fourth one. So Jefferson was a small state Democrat, was a statist Democrat, meaning he was for the states. And there were other people like Alexander Hamilton who were Federalists. They thought there had to be a strong federal government. That was one element. Then when the Republican and Democratic parties came in, the height of the Republican Party, Lincoln Republicans, right? The Lincoln Republicans, Lincoln's freed the slaves in 1863. The Lincoln Republicans.
Are we still? I can't hear you, Dr. Morris. It's frozen. I can see. I don't know. Have we lost the signal? No, that's Dr. Morris.
Well, he was basically telling us that you can't refer to them as. Okay, he's back. Go ahead.
Yeah,
he's back. Okay.
So I don't know how much you heard, but so you had the first stage of Republicans, which were between the Federalists and the Statists, right? Then you had the second phase, the apotheosis of which was the Lincoln Republicans. When Lincoln died, and then in 1872, they had a convention and they produced a manifesto that reflected the Declaration of Independence. The people who are today's, the people who are today's Republicans bolted from the Republican Party and they became the Democratic Party. And that Democratic Party came all the way down to the Nixon period, the Dixiecrats and all that. Then another switch took place. And now you have the structure that you've had up until today, where the Republican Party was the business party and the Democratic Party was the party of the small man, the unions, and so on. Now what you have is a MAGA party, right? You have a MAGA party, and you have a radical far left Democratic Party outside the social mainstream of what you might call a Christian or Christian-leaning nation. So Trump is going to govern from his MAGA proposition. Now, what does that mean? That's inherently autocratic, dictatorial, and fascistic in this way. I explained to you the vertical of power before. I explained to you the billionaires who surround him and so on. But Trump has something else. Trump is what you might call a Kissingerian. Henry Kissinger did not have a lot of time for multilateralism and international law. Mm-hmm. He believed in superpower prerogative. Superpower prerogative. And what does that mean? That means you don't go to the United Nations, you don't do treaties, right? You don't have 30 countries in the room together negotiating between them. No. The three big dogs in the world get together and they carve up the world between them. And then each of them, when there's a problem, they enforce in their particular region the interests of the superpower. That's Kissingerianism. Trump loves that because whatever you say about him, I think Pastor McAlpine said that he loves dictators. That's actually a very interesting thing to notice, because what he really loves is not being alone. Remember, Trump really comes from Queens. So he enters into New York City. Immediately, he wants to be part of the elite families of New York. In the same way, he's president of the United States. He doesn't want to be alone at the top of the heap. He wants to be there with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, so he could say, we are the big boys club. We are the, and that's Kissingerianism. It turns out that that's right in line with Kissingerianism. So what does that mean in terms of foreign policy? I think Trump's foreign policy will be very, very predictable. Number one, Zelensky is dead. Ukraine is Russian macaroni and cheese, set to be eaten, right? Number two, Trump will stand down on the Taiwanese conflict. Trump wants to compete with Xi Jinping, but not about human rights and some other Chinese people in another island. He's not interested in that. He is interested in competing on nuclear proliferation, on trade on giving the impression that he's getting China to pay for things when nobody else could, and so on. That really doesn't fit well with this whole stop them from going into Taiwan, because he's not interested in that. You could see the assembling of NATO, because Trump finds the Europeans generally useless. You could find that in Palestine, Trump allows Netanyahu to kill every single Palestinian that there is. I want people to understand, Gaza is not a place. Gaza is the place where in 1948, the Israeli state pushed the Palestinians, where they've been living for 2,000 years. And please understand this. There's no such thing as a pure blood Palestinian. They are Jewish, Arab, Persian, Turkish, Greek, they're an admixture, right? And one of the things that is to be noticed is that with Benjamin Netanyahu, you had some constraints on him. Those constraints are now not going to be there, because Trump, and it's an open question whether the lobby, the Israeli lobby in the United States, which is the most powerful, whether or not, since Trump may be limited, and I say may be limited to one term because he's bound to interpret it differently, whether or not they will have the same leverage, because Trump now has solved his money problem. He's got his billionaires, so he doesn't really need the Jewish lobby. So that's an area where you could look for some give and take. But where Trump is going to have some issues is on the economy. And the economy will determine how strong he can be abroad. On the domestic front, he will do whatever he wants because this vertical of power gives him that power. But on the economy, if you look at the bond markets today, bond yields have shot right up. That means that lending money to the United States is now costing the United States more. Why is that? Because the market is saying, we know that Trump is going to cut taxes. Trump, for wealthy people, Trump is going to get rid of regulations. Trump is going to print money. That means the US economy will be highly inflationary. And therefore, if we are holding US government bonds, we need to charge a high interest rate just in case, these bonds become more risky because of what Trump is likely to do. And it may be, the saving grace may be that on the economic management front, Trump will be constrained by his inability to execute based on, if you print more money, you make the economy more inflationary, you destroy economic performance, and that causes anxiety amongst the very people to whom he said he would bring relief. You see that? So that's a core and central problem for Trump. There's one last thing. In 2 years, there will be a midterm election. And if on the economy, he causes such chaos by cutting capital gains taxes to 15%, cutting taxes for wealthy people, getting rid of the death tax that was implemented, all right, giving concessions and to people like Elon Musk and other businesses and so on, printing more money to have more money to do the things that he wants to do. If that becomes inflationary, because at the same time, remember, just 2 weeks ago, you had the BRICS conference, and the BRICS payment system was launched. U.S. as reserve currency was 72% of global reserves. It is down now to 51%. So all that money is making it back to the United States. So if you cut taxes and so on, that means you don't have the money to cover the responsibilities of government. And then if you print more money to be able to do the things you do, that means even more money is in the pot, but you don't have greater productivity, you don't have more assets, you don't have anything. Therefore, the price of everything has to rise, and now your bonds become unstable. So look for the economic system to be a constraint on Trump in interesting ways.
Okay, one other question just before we move on to the other to our other guests. Real quick, the signature economic policy position now being espoused and pushed by Trump pre-election and now post-election, I gather, is this whole question of a cross-the-board tax on imports. Now, Professor Morris, you know the impact of taxes on imports. You understand how the market operates. This particular economic suggestion has been derided by many economists. He seems to be hell-bent on going about it. First, do you see him moving forward with that? And what impact would that have, not just on the United States, but on the Bahamas?
Yeah. The one of the things that I tell my students is that there's no such thing as the U.S. economy. There's just the global economy now. They're so integrated. So China has $3 trillion US, right? So 10% of U.S. GDP. China has that. You could say China could dump those US dollars. But if they dump those US dollars, they destroy the economy that's importing so much from China. So China and the United States are locked into a mutuality. The problem for the United States is the more they import from China, the more dollars China has to invest in Africa and other places in the world and outpace the US in its global footprint. So that's a problem. On the tariff in particular, I have been shocked, frankly, at the third grade understanding of so many people with respect. So Trump keeps saying, we're going to make China pay. If you impose a tariff, China doesn't pay, you do.
The consumer, that's correct. That's correct.
You do. So if you're importing, if China has electric vehicles, those vehicles are $50,000. You put 100% tariff on it. China may have the problem that its market share shrinks, so it may be hurt by that. But your people have to pay more when they want the Chinese car. So your people are the ones that's paying more. So in this last administration, when he put the tariff on wheat, U.S. farmers went bankrupt and they had to pay them billions of dollars to keep them in the political fold.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we have to be careful of these, because Trump does something very interesting. He just says stuff off the top of his head. And because it's a vertically integrated autocracy, grown men, I don't know if you remember that cabinet meeting that he showed where grown men just went around the table. You're the greatest leader I've ever met. You're the most outstanding.
Early on in his first term. Yes,
absolutely. And only Mad Dog was the one who just said, it's nice to be here. I remember. And of course, he was packing immediately, down to Florida to sit with his cat and suffer by himself.
Okay, Dr. Gilbert, I appreciate that. In fact, for those of us, for our listeners, it's going to be important that this kind of information is taken seriously, because what we're looking at for the next few years essentially is is either volatility or a surprise, calm period of reflection, and a man who changes overnight. It's of serious concern. The human race, I shouldn't say the human race, let me not gaslight the situation, but clearly the world, the American electorate may not really fully appreciate what it has done.
No.
They do not know that they have what they do not fully appreciate what they have done. No one is touting the so-called virtues of Kamala Harris. She was really put into an unwinnable type race in any event. But the question is, do they fully appreciate what they have done? Pastor McAlpine, Ms. McIntosh, and of course, Ilan, your thoughts. Pastor McAlpine? Oh. Pastor, unmute.
I'm sorry. There you go. There you go. You can hear me now. I'm sorry. I want to say that these are unusual times globally, and we're going to be watching and paying attention as to what's happening. You like we said earlier, you never know what to expect from Donald Trump. Expect the unexpected. But we can only hope and pray that he will have the strength to come forward with some grace and some dignity and some amicability as it relates to the United States and his political foes as he moves forward. It's going to be interesting. Mr. Thompson, thanks for having me. Ali, Master White, Professor, it's good to be with all of you, and I wish you all the best, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Yes, indeed. Pastor, you're leaving us right now, so I gather we'll chat with you. Hopefully, we'll see you again.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Ali, and of course, Mr. White. Mr. White, I don't want to anticipate anything right now, but it doesn't seem as if persons are very, very hopeful, but we must hope and pray for the best. Ilan, real quick, and of course, Ms. Ali, final word to you, and of course, from Dr. Gilbert Morris.
Yes, as iterated before, President Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump, he's now been elected. So there's nothing we can do about it. We must remain hopeful. Hopefully, the rhetoric that he was spewing this election cycle does not come into fruition. On a global scale, it does have some implications, like Dr. Morris said, as it relates to tariffs and other implications that it might have on the Bahamas. We will be affected by this presidency. So it'll be interesting to see. I am hopeful. I am optimistic about it. So, yeah. But thank you again, Mr. Thompson, for inviting me.
It's been great, Ilan. I've enjoyed it completely, and do well. And continue to make Mommy proud.
Thank you.
McIntosh, your final thoughts.
Yes, sir. This is our closing.
Yeah, we're at that point. We're getting.
Hello.
We're getting near that point. We have another.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is that everyone is speaking to the issue, but most Americans have not really traveled. A lot of them have, but most of them have not. So their appreciation of what the ramifications of their vote for Mr. Trump puts on the global community. I am hoping that cooler heads can prevail. Like Ilan, I'm hoping that a lot of what he said is just rhetoric, and that he's not prepared to do all of that, to go so far radical, because we have to be. But I do believe that the Bahamas should provide levels of advice if the world gets sticky with the kind of situation that Mr. Trump can put us in. Whatever happens, we have to, as part of the government, to bring that information forward, and we want to be able to advise so that there can be calm. Go ahead.
Okay. Ali, I appreciate your intervention, your contribution tonight. Dr. Morris, thank you very much for taking your time away and joining us here tonight. And we'll be in touch. Thank you all for joining us. Again, looking for the perfect fence to secure your property and elevate your home style. Look no further than the Fencing Roster, where we provide top quality fences built to last. Whether it's privacy, security, or curb appeal you're after, we offer a wide range of options. Visit us now on Facebook or Instagram at Fencing Roster to view our work. Our one-man fencing expert ensures slow, reliable, and affordable installation every time. What's up? 820-335-6. Today, Fencing Roster, protecting what matters most, your life and your loved ones. It's Fayne Thompson, and it's been a pleasure being here tonight. I hope you have a chance and an opportunity to join us again on another occasion. It's The Breakdown. Be safe out there, Bahama land.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.